Welcome back to the IBFP. Here's your host, Boxing Nuke.
Welcome back, fight fans. Welcome back. Let's just dig right into it. Luis King Kong Ortiz accepts Joe Joyce's challenge. He's ready to fight him next. Let's just dig right into it. Now, basically, on the Wilder Fury undercard, Joe Joyce called out Luis Ortiz in the post-fight press conference, and these guys even had a slight face-off. This is a direct quote from Luis Ortiz. "I will enjoy fighting Joyce and will enjoy giving him his first career loss, but I want him to remember it was him who called me out. I wasn't looking for him. But again, if he lets his hype man or manager get in his head and he thinks he's that good and wants it, why wait?" And so that's an interesting comment. Basically, here's another direct quote from King Kong Luis Ortiz. "Look, I just want to keep making a name for myself and maybe get a shot at Wilder again, or even Fury or Joshua. If I can't, then I'd love to fight Dillian Whyte or even Alexander Povetkin would be a good fight for me, and I think my true fans would enjoy any of those fights." And Luis Ortiz is 100% correct. All of those fights would be tremendous. And I like Luis Ortiz. I think he's a very good and talented fighter. I don't believe Luis Ortiz is elite. And I'll break down what I mean by that. I think Luis Ortiz is a top-tier fighter. And there's tiers into the game. There's levels. And there's A, B, and C. He's a B-level fighter. And it's not because he doesn't have the skills or ability to be an A-level fighter. It's simply because of intangibles that are his weight, basically his health as far as his blood pressure issues, and also his stamina. When he's in there with a guy like Wilder, Fury, or Joshua, you've seen when he was fighting Wilder, he got visibly tired. And these are the things that makes him not elite. His age as well is another factor. And so I know there's a lot of guys out here that are very biased that'll hype up Luis Ortiz to try to lend more credibility to Deontay Wilder's resume. And we're not going to do that. We're going to be 100% honest and unbiased. While we think Luis Ortiz is a very good fighter, a very talented fighter, and a very skilled fighter, he is not an elite fighter because of his weight, his health, and his stamina. These are all things that will always come into play. He doesn't have elite punching power. He does have punching power, but it's not elite. You wouldn't consider his power Wilder or Joshua because noticeably he wasn't able to get Deontay Wilder out of there when he had the opportunity. In his most recent fight, he beat Travis Kaufman over 10 rounds. He was unable to get this journeyman out of there as well. And there's no knock at Luis Ortiz. He dominated the fight. He just was unable to finish the job, so he went the entire 10 rounds. But I do respect Luis Ortiz, so don't take that the wrong way. I think Luis Ortiz, because he's never been a world champion, because he's never beat a top-level, elite-level opponent, you can't rank him up there in that upper echelons of those type of guys, of the Deontay Wilders, the Tyson Furies, the Anthony Joshuas. We don't want to put Luis Ortiz up there. A lot of people always say, well, how come everybody's ducking Luis Ortiz? No one's ducking Luis Ortiz. You have to look at it like this. Why would an Anthony Joshua, Dillian Whyte, Tyson Fury, or even Deontay Wilder even want to take that fight initially? Why did any of those guys really didn't clamor for the opportunity of Luis Ortiz? Not because he's too skilled, not because he's so great of a fighter, because clearly they all know he has stamina issues and things of that nature. It's because that Luis Ortiz is not a world champion. So if you beat him, you get no belt. If you beat him, you get no massive payday. So what do you get from beating Luis Ortiz? Absolutely nothing. There's no benefit for beating Luis Ortiz if you're any of those guys. But on the other hand, if you're Joe Joyce, you help improve your name. So let's dig into Joe Joyce and Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz's best win on his resume, who is that? Malik Scott, who he didn't stop. He beat over a 12-round decision. I mean, who is his best opponent? A lot of people say, Bryant Jennings. Like Bryant Jennings and Malik Scott are not the best two guys in heavyweight. They're not elite fighters. And so if those are the best names on your resume, I think you're being a tad bit hyped. I think Luis Ortiz is very good and talented and skilled, but he's not an elite fighter. And anyone that typically just doesn't understand that has not watch boxing thoroughly. You have to be completely unbiased and honest about this. But Luis Ortiz is very talented. He has 30 wins, 1 loss, and the 1 loss came to Deontay Wilder, in which he was stopped. He has 26 knockouts, so he's a very talented and strong fighter. On the opposite end, Joe Joyce is new in his heavyweight career. He's being fast-tracked. He has 7 wins, no losses, with 7 knockouts, so every one of his fights coming by way of knockout. Now, as we all know, I guess an estimated date for Luis Ortiz is he's 39 years old. He stands at 6'4", and he has a 78-inch reach. On the reverse end, Joe Joyce, he's 33 years old, much younger. He stands at 6'6", taller, and he has a longer reach at 80 inches. He's from the UK. He's a very talented fighter. He was also on the Wilder Fury card. And his win came in a first-round stoppage of Joe Hanks. And so you have to understand that while Joe Joyce is unproven, and we know that Luis Ortiz is a very good fighter, if Joe Joyce can beat him, then that will make a huge name for him. I think that this would make a great matchup. I think it's a 50-50 fight, to be honest with you. I'm going to be 100% unbiased. I know a lot of people say you're crazy for not picking Luis Ortiz straight off the bat. I'm not going to overrate Luis Ortiz. I think he's a very talented and good fighter. But at the same time, I think Joe Joyce is very good and very talented. I mean, you can make the same argument that both guys are slow. You can make the same argument that both guys aren't speedsters. But you can give Joe Joyce certain intangibles, like the fact that he's taller, he has a longer reach. And it appears at this stage that his power is elite. It appears. At this point, we know Luis Ortiz's power is not elite, because if you see a guy like Travis Kaufman can go 10 rounds, Travis Kaufman, Malik Scott, if these guys can go 12 rounds with Luis Ortiz, what makes you think that Joe Joyce has no chance, and he's a bigger, stronger, talented fighter who has heavy hands? You know, everyone that sparred with Joe Joyce said he's very talented. Look at Tyson Fury. He's recently sparred with Joe Joyce for the Wilder fight. And he's basically raved about how good of a fighter he is, how talented of a fighter he is, and that one day he'll be world champion. Do not underrate Joe Joyce. I think this is a 50-50 fight. Luis Ortiz could win this fight based on experience and technical ability. But if he gets tired, I think Joe Joyce could possibly stop him. I think that fight could go either way. I think that if Joe Joyce's chin has not been thoroughly tested, he could possibly even be stopped. This would be a 50-50 fight. I don't think there's any type of clear winner for this, but I think the reason why Joe Joyce wants this fight is because it'll help build his name off of a guy that's basically a known, savvy veteran. And this is the type of fight that Joe Joyce needs for his name to be mentioned. It's not going to be a big payday, and it's not going to be a title shot. But since he's up and coming, he's not an established star like Anthony Joshua, like Tyson Fury, like Dillian White. This is the type of fight that he would need, because it fits him at this level in his career. Once again, reporting unbiased, it's the IBFP.